Alright, hello everyone. This is Baron from Ragic again, and I'll be presenting how to create a contacts sheet. Alright, so if you've been using Ragic for a while, you do know how to create a form, but maybe are a bit reluctant about the linking, and perhaps you want to try it out but haven't really gotten to it, or maybe you just imported some of your data. That is all fine. We will go through some of the steps today to create a contacts database, and if you have any questions during our presentation, you can just hover on your screen and you'll see the chat bubble button icon in the middle of your screen on the top, and just feel free to ask me anything and don't be hesitant to interrupt me. I will get to your questions if I can't get to you at that moment, and yeah, just feel free to ask me anything during or after. We will have a long Q&A session, and again, anything you ask will benefit the other viewers, so just feel confident that I will answer your questions. Alright, let's begin. I will start sharing my screen now, and I do have an empty sheet. Now let's wait for it to load. Okay, so by the way, this program I am using to present, it's kind of lagging behind sometimes. So if you miss anything, or if it's going a little bit too slow, if it's laggy, just let me know through the chat. Again, the chat button is when you hover on your screen, and it's in the upper middle part of your screen. Just let me know if for instance, you missed anything or you have any questions through the chat, and I'll see it and answer or go slower depending on the circumstances. Alright, let's begin. So here my account is empty basically, and I will be creating a new contacts sheet. So when we create a new sheet, a sheet is actually a collection of your records. But there are two parts to a sheet. So when we click create, it will take us to the design mode of the form page. So what we're basically going to do is design a form with the design mode. So you can either drag and drop fields from here, or use the easier way, which is just typing on empty cells. What I'm going to do here is just create fields for the values we're going to put in. Any questions so far? No? Is everyone alright? Okay, so what I need for my contacts is the first name and the last name, and possibly an address. I misspelled that. There you go, address and phone number. So you can notice that these field types changed because I typed address and phone. So Ragic does auto-detect what you're typing and the field name, and the value would be formatted into an address on this field and a phone number on this field. So you can also choose from the presets for the phone. Some fields allow you to have some formatting. When you enter the value, you will see that it is formatted accordingly. So these are the basic fields that I need, and I do always recommend to have a unique identifier for any type of data you're putting in Ragic. So why is that, you might say? Because for our contacts, for instance, we probably don't have their social security number, so there's no unique identifier that we can choose. Some stores, for instance, like to use a phone number or an email. I usually like to have an ID number, So we can call this a contact ID in this case. And we do have free text available, but you can also choose auto generate, so you don't really have to bother assigning something for each contact. Ragic would do that automatically for you. Here in the format, it shows it will generate zeros and a number. So Chris, sorry. So my first contact, for example, someone named Chris would be number 1. So I always like to embellish this format by adding a prefix before, because we might have different types of records that we need to identify. So for example, a contact would be C something, an employee would be E something, and that's just a good way of keeping your data. If you already have an ID for contacts, that's fine, you can use that as the ID, but I like to do this in this way. Alright, I'm going to save this and we will get back to this later. And let's exit to see our form. So this is the form we just created. It has empty fields right now. We can create a new record by pressing new on this empty form. So you can see that I can't really edit the auto generate field, it will generate it on its own. And I will add not name, an address, like so. So you can see that, oh, I have 1 digit missing. You can see that the phone number formatted according to my formatting I chose during the design process. Alright, everyone catching up so far? If you have any questions, just let me know. Okay, so you can see that the auto-generate field generated number 1 for Chris, and if I added a new contact, it would be number 2. And save. Okay, so all these contacts, they're gonna be individually kept in the form, and if you go click on this back to listing page, which is the first page you'll see afterwards when you click the contacts sheet, is the listing page. So the listing page is basically the summary of all your data. You can change the columns that you see here, but basically all your data will be displayed in rows. Alright, so you can see that my first contact is the row beneath my second contact, and this will expand as I add new contacts in my sheet. Alright. So what to do about your form design? Sometimes people ask me how to format their form design in a more nicer way, I guess. You can have titles or static text fields that you can add through the Add Components tab over here. So these static texts are some preset headers that or text fields that you can add. These are not stored in your database. These are actually only extra description fields that you can use. For example, contact details might be something that I use, and you can see that we have some formatting options over here, like so. So you can add these fields and change the design a little bit to jazz up your form. So the data entry people will have some visual cue on what to do with your sheet. You can add notes, and they will be displayed on every form page you have. So when you change the design of your form, basically it will be shown on each record. Any pressing questions about formatting, anyone? No? Okay. Well, I'll continue, and what I'm going to do next is I need to, let's say I had a sales team and they needed to log each point of contact with these contacts. So, for example, that might be a phone call, that might be a meeting, that might be a online conference session. It can get a little bit too much if you want to record all of these instances and see who did in the past. So let's change the design here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add a subtable, which is a collection of records related to this one contact. So how do I create a subtable? I will create a field saying date of contact. And this is only one field, right? I want to have multiple records of this contact. And the way to do that is creating a subtable, which is I'm going to ignore where this date value would have been if I created a regular field. And I'm just going to click right on it and create a new field called, let's say, contact type. And you can see that the values shifted beneath my field headers. So we can have multiple values down here. You can only see 3 rows over here, but that would expand once you add more data in it. And details. So you can add as many fields as you need. For the contact type, this turned into a selection field because I wrote type. Because Ragic auto detects it, and I was going to make a selection field anyway, so that's fine. But you can always change the field type if you're not really happy with it. What you can do with the selection field is add multiple options, which you can select while you're doing the data entry. So I'm going to write phone call, email, meeting, one-on-one, let's say, conference call, office visit, and whatnot. You can just elaborate. This doesn't have to be this complicated if you don't really have these choices, or you might not even need this field, but this is an example. So let's save. As I said, you can see 3 blank fields, and if you add data in here, let's say we contacted them with a phone call, first cold call, and then let's say on the 3rd they called back, project details needed, and then as I add more fields over here, as you can see, the subtable expands and you can add as many data as you need. And so on. So I'm going to save this, and you can see that Christo right now has 3 contact records, and let's go and add one to our other contact. Okay, what's the point of all this? So, as you can see, the subtable records don't show up over here. And why is that? Because we might have multiple contact records in a subtable, it's not really possible to show just one of them in the listing page. The listing page is supposed to be the summary of your form for standalone fields. And if you really need to find some data in the subtable within here, you can see that we also have the subtable fields on the search over here on the left. So you can click on, for example, contact type, and let's say we want to see all contacts that had a phone call in records. We can search for it, and of course both will pop up. If I had said email, only one of them would show up over here. So you can see that. And if I hover on, oh sorry, that's not linked yet. Okay, so far so good. But if you wanted to see all contact records in that one subtable for all of my contacts, then what would we do? We can create a new sheet out of this subtable so that we can collect all of the contact records on one separate sheet. So let's do that by clicking Change Design. And you can see this button over here, Sheet Linking Tools. Everything you need for linking your sheets together is under here. The method we're going to use here is new sheet from subtable. So this generates a new sheet with the records from this subtable. And all of these subtable records, row by row, are going to be in a separate record in another sheet. So Ragic generates that for you, and you can see that we also have the contact ID listed here. So if you need to do filters and whatnot, you can use the contact ID as well. And as you can see, this is a generated form. And if I had added a new entry through this form, let's say on the 9th, we had a contact with Peter Parker with email. And then saved it. If we go back to our client contact sheet to Peter Parker, we would see that contact record saved under the subtable. This is done automatically, so you don't really have to go back and forth. You can also create a new entry over here and it will be saved in that other sheet. So any questions so far? Any questions about the linking? The new sheet I generated is right under here, so if you don't have a field header if you don't have a field static text field like this over here saying contact records, it will grab the first field's name. If you do have one, then it will grab the contact records if I had it. So I'm going to rename that sheet to be, I right clicked right there. I'm going to change its name and say contact records. There you go. Okay, moving on. So a lot of times people ask me how do I import entries into an existing sheet. So let's go to our contacts, and if you have like thousands of contacts in a spreadsheet, then importing it is pretty easy. Let's see, I have an example over here. Let me drag that from my second screen. There you go. Okay, so usually Okay, we have a question about setting up an API if I have time. I actually have time, but I'm not really that knowledgeable about the API myself because I'm not a programmer. Um, you can send an email to support at Ragic about your questions about the API, and we can answer you through there. All right, so yeah, no problem. Okay, so our clients are listed in the subtable with the first row as the field headers. So if you don't have this formatting, and if you have a very blocked or like sideways formatting, I have seen a lot of weird spreadsheet formatting types, but the one that Ragic accepts is this. The first field, the first row needs to be the field header. It doesn't matter if your field headers have different names. We will get to mapping in a bit. And your data would be in the other rows. So a lot of people keep their data like this, and this is the most common thing we see, so this is what we implemented in Ragic. So you'll notice that I don't have the contact ID for these people. If you don't have the habit of keeping an ID for each of the records you had, it's okay because Ragic can generate the contact ID later for you if it's blank. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to import this and generate contact ID for each of these people. And I will import it from my computer by clicking Tools on my listing page. And here you can see there are a lot of options, but what we're looking for is import. So I'm going to import data from that file. It will ask me to choose the file from my computer. And there you go, clients, and open. Okay, so when we upload this, it will show me all of the fields that I had, and it's asking me if the first row is the header, and yes it is. If you had multiple sheets on the worksheet, it will ask which worksheet you're going to import. And next. So you can also see that I have a gender field that I'm not going to use in my database. I think it's irrelevant now after using it for 10 years, let's say, and I'm just going to ignore that. You can see that Ragic already figured out which fields are supposed to be mapped to which fields, but the name is not the same name, so I'm just going to select first name. So when your fields have different names, you might have to select a field to map it to, and sometimes it audits text, but it's very important in this step to be cautious and be sure that each field is mapped to its equivalent. And I'll say next. Once it's mapped. So the import policy, this is important when you want to renew your data. For example, if you are updating your data from a spreadsheet that has newer data in it. So that doesn't really happen that often. It usually is useful when you have large things like price lists. And as you can see, this is the updating of a price list in the example over here. So it does check the field ID in this case, so that's important afterwards, but we're going to create a new record and say next. And that's all the steps. So we're going to import our data. And this will take us back to our database sheet. And you can see that Ragic auto-generated the rest of my contacts IDs. But if you need to if you had manually entered this, or you didn't think of adding an ID field first and did it later, you can also generate a contact ID click on the auto generate field and you'll see populate empty values. So if you ever need that, it's right there. Alright, so that's how we import our data. And if you had wanted to import data into the contact record subtable, the way to do it would be through the contact record sheet. So for that, for the data to map correctly, you would need the contact ID and the key field in this sheet. So I didn't really add a contact record ID field, but we probably need it for this case. And the date of contact is, I think, the regular field here, but the contact ID needs to be there in your spreadsheet file while you're importing as well. So any questions so far? No? Alright, I'll add a new sheet as a tidbit, and as sales. Let's say we had products to show you the next most common linking we use. I'm going to just create a very simple products sheet. Let's just add 2 products. Let's also add a price actually. If I'm going too fast, please let me know. You know that this program lags behind sometimes. And I'll save it. Okay, so our first product is ABC tiles, and the next one I'm going to just create a random okay, we have a very simple product sheet, and I'm going to create a sales order sheet for our customers to order things from. Alright, so new sheet and sales orders. Okay, so sales order number. This can be an auto-generate field again. So this time I'm going to write SO as a prefix to this number. Okay, so what I have been talking about was the next most common linking, which is the link and load. What I'm going to do here is I really want to be able to just rate or select from my customers and have their addresses autofill in my form for the sales order. So I'm going to select my contacts here and select the key field first and drag it to wherever you want to place it on your other sheet. So this is going to place the contact ID on the sales order sheet as a selection. So I will be selecting from the contact ID, and the next ones will all be loaded automatically. So the one I really need here is the address because I might be printing that on a label later. So that is link and load. just drag and drop the fields, and if you already created the corresponding fields, you could have connected them on the linking configuration we just saw, and you'll see what I mean in a minute. So let's say our first sales order was from one of our contacts, Mary Jane. So I just selected C0007 and it autofilled Mary Jane's info automatically. So what happens if I wanted to add multiple products that she wanted to buy? I would do that with the form design again, and through link and load, this time I'm going to link my products. So this is going to be in my sales tab under products. So I will be selecting my product SKU number, and then it would autofill the name, and we probably don't need the description. If you need it, just link it, and the price. And exit link manager. So what this is going to do is it's going to allow me to select an SKU number. And if you also, this also works for the contact ID as the linked field. If you wanted to write it down, you can see that the related SKUs pop up, so you can select from one of these or write it entirely. Or you can just click on this arrow to see the list of the products, and you can use the filters from here. If you wanted to, for example, look for ABC12, it would search for related entries. So as you can see, we have the prices, but what if they wanted to order multiples of them? So we can kind of change the design to have this named unit price. So you can change the names of the fields, no problem. And quantity, subtotal, and let's say we have the total field right here. So what I'm doing here is I'm going to add a formula to this field to calculate what's in this row, how many units. It will calculate the price of the product depending on the quantity. So what I'm going to do is, in Ragic we always add formulas to the field headers. So what the subtotal is supposed to show is C8, as you can see, C8 times D8, C8 times D8, and the total is supposed to show the money value. Money just puts a dollar in the formatting. You can change the dollar if you're using pounds or anything else through here by typing in this box. So the total is supposed to be the sum of the subtotal over here, which is E8. You don't really have to write a sum formula because it's the total of this when you write E8. Okay, let's save and exit. So while you're typing, Ragic will automatically calculate this for you. So if I wanted 2 of these items and 3 of these items, as you can see, the calculation is done automatically, and when you save, it's saved in your database. Any questions so far? Am I going too fast? No? So that's the one of the most common linking types we do with link and load. And I also showed you how to generate a new sheet from the subtable we had on our contacts sheet. And the third most common used linking is, what if I wanted to see all the sales orders Mary Jane had put in? Now, since I have a link and load field over here and I had linked Mary Jane's contact ID, which is the key field of my contacts sheet. I would go back to my contacts sheet, and you can do this from any of the records. It all goes to the same form design. So you can see that contact records is here listed under the new sheet from subtable because we had generated it. But we can add the sales orders as a reference subtable because we had linked Mary Jane's, not Mary Jane's, but our contact ID. So sales orders linked subtable I will put right under here. And what I need is the sales order number and the total of the order. And let's just add another description field. And you can see that it's the sales order is automatically listed under a related contact. As you can see, when I hover on the title of the sales order, it shows me the details of a sales order. Any questions so far? That's mostly the content I wanted to show you today. So if you have any other unrelated questions or related questions are all fine. Just let me know through the chat. And Chris, I'm sorry I couldn't help you with the API. We do have a guide for the APIs, but if your question is really specific, you can email to support@ragic.com. Alright, so the guide is under Learn Ragic, and if you hover on the Learn Ragic thing, you can see the developer API over there, so you can check that out first. And if you have any questions, just shoot us an email and one of our developers will get back to you. And does anyone else have any questions? Yes? No? Alright, well, thank you all for attending today. I hope it's a beautiful day out there. If not, have a great day indoors. And thank you again for joining. And again, if you have any other questions, you can email me directly, but I would recommend you to send an email to our support address because I see that faster actually. Alright. Well, if there's nothing else, I will be ending the webinar, and thank you again. Have a great day, and if you have any questions, you know what to do.